Have you ever wondered what the final days of a great mission look like? What happens when a man who changed the course of history begins to prepare for his departure, even when the world around him is just beginning to awaken? Manja, after spending 23 long years calling people toward Islam, the messenger of God had now become the leader of the entire Arabian Peninsula. Tribe after tribe had abandoned idol worship and turned toward the worship of one God. The land that was once divided by blood and pride was now united by faith. What had started in secrecy and hardship had grown into a powerful civilization. The Islamic State had become a rising global force. But with this success came a quiet truth. His life's mission was nearing completion. News began spreading beyond Arabia. People everywhere started talking about a prophet who had united an entire region under the name of one God. Travelers came from distant lands just to see him, to hear him, to understand this new message. And in that historic moment, he set out for what would become his first and last pilgrimage. When he reached Mecca, thousands upon thousands gathered around him. During this pilgrimage, he delivered the farewell sermon, words that would echo through history. More than 100,000 people stood before him. Among them were people of every color and background, Arab and non-Arab, black and white, rich and poor. And there, he declared something revolutionary. He said that no white person was superior to a black person, and no Arab was superior to a non-Arab, except through righteousness. He spoke about the rights of women. He spoke about justice, dignity, and responsibility. Many of his words would later resemble principles found in modern human rights charters. On to that day, everyone present bore witness that he had fulfilled his duty as the final messenger of God. After completing the pilgrimage, he returned toward Madinah. On the way, at a place called Ghadir Qum, he addressed the people again and declared that whoever considered him their leader should also consider Ali as their leader. Earlier, during the expedition of Tabuk, he had already appointed Ali as his representative in Medina and had said that Ali's position to him was like that of Harun to Musa, except that there would be no prophet after him. When he returned to Medina, he began preparing an army to confront the Roman Empire, to respond to the losses suffered in the Battle of Mu'tah. He appointed Usama, the son of Zayd ibn Haritha, as the commander, honoring his father who had been martyred in that battle. But then suddenly illness struck. Slowly his condition worsened. Day by day his strength faded. Even in severe sickness, he continued leading prayers in the mosque. But in his final days, he became too weak. He then instructed Abu Bakr to lead the prayers in his place. His last days were spent in the room of Aisha, attached to the Prophet's mosque. His illness intensified. Then one morning, a voice spread through Medina. He had returned to his Lord. The city froze. How could this be? He was only 61 years old, according to the solar calendar, and 63, according to the lunar calendar. People could not believe it. Grief flooded the streets. Cries echoed through homes and markets. Medina wept. Umar, overwhelmed with pain, drew his sword and declared that anyone who said the Prophet had passed away would be punished. He insisted that, like Musa, who had disappeared for 40 days and returned, the Prophet would come back after meeting his Lord. So, he believed this because the Prophet had often spoken of a future where Muslims would defeat the Roman and Persian empires. How could he leave before seeing this fulfilled? Umar did not yet know that God would later grant these victories through his own hands. While Umar stood in the mosque with his sword, Abu Bakr quietly entered Aisha's room. He kissed the Prophet's forehead and whispered farewell. Then he stepped outside. Climbing the pulpit, He addressed the people. His voice was calm, though his heart was shattered. "O Umar, sit down." When Umar refused, Abu Bakr continued, "Bangyo people, whoever among you worshipped Muhammad should know that Muhammad has passed away, and whoever worships God should know that God is alive and will never die." Then he recited the verse revealed after the Battle of Uhud, reminding them that Muhammad was only a messenger, and that many messengers had passed before him. If he were to die, would they turn back from their faith? Hearing this, Umar collapsed to the ground. It felt as if he had never heard this verse before. Slowly, reality settled in. The Prophet was truly gone. But before the city could even breathe, news arrived that the Ansar were meeting to choose a new leader. Abu Bakr, Umar, and Abu Ubaidah rushed to the gathering. They found many supporting Sa'd ibn Ubadah. Abu Bakr explained that this was no longer a small city-state. It was now the leadership of all Arabia, and only Quraysh, respected across the land and connected to Makkah and the Kaaba, could unite the tribes. The people agreed. After discussion, Abu Bakr suggested Umar or Abu Ubaidah. But Umar immediately took Abu Bakr's hand and pledged allegiance, saying no one was more deserving. One by one, the people followed. Appeased without bloodshed, without war, the greatest empire of the region chose its leader through consultation. Junayd Ali was absent at that time, busy with the burial of the Prophet. Later, he questioned why such a major decision had been made without the family present. Some tried to use this division for political gain, but Ali refused to create conflict. Eventually, he too pledged allegiance, choosing unity over division. This disagreement would later become one of the most debated issues in Islamic history, leading to different schools of thought. When Abu Bakr became caliph, he returned to his shop the very next day. People asked why. "Manager," he said, "if I don't work, how will I feed my family?" They insisted on giving him a salary. He asked for the wage of an ordinary worker. When they said it was too little, he said then raise the workers' wages instead. Thus began the first righteous caliphate. His first action was to send out the army that had been delayed during the Prophet's illness. He continued everything as it had been before, but challenges were rising. Hypocrites became bold. Some refused to pay charity. Others falsely claimed prophethood, trying to copy the success of Islam. One of them was Musaylama the liar. The danger was no longer hidden. From different corners of Arabia, troubling news began to arrive in Medina. Some tribes declared that they would pray, but they would not give charity anymore. Others said their loyalty had ended with the life of the Prophet. And then there were those who went even further, men who stood before their people and claimed that revelation had come to them. Gendia among them was Musaylima al-Khattab, who gathered thousands around himself in Yamama. He promised easy rules, personal power, and a religion shaped by desire. Many weak-hearted people followed him, thinking faith was only tied to one man, not to God. When these reports reached Madinah, fear spread quietly. Some companions were worried. The Muslim state was still young. The Prophet was gone. Enemies were watching. Tribes were breaking away. If this fire was not stopped now, it could burn everything. But Abu Bakr did not hesitate. With calm eyes and a firm heart, he stood before the companions and said something that would define his leadership forever. "By God, if they withhold even a rope they used to give in charity, I will fight them for it." Some people were shocked. Umar said, "How can you fight those who pray and believe?" Abu Bakr replied quietly, "Prayer and charity are inseparable. This religion cannot be broken into pieces." He understood something very deep. If Islam became negotiable, it would soon disappear. So he made a decision. War would be fought, not for power, not for land, but to protect faith itself. He organized armies and sent them in different directions. Each group had a clear mission: bring the rebels back to truth or face justice. And among all these commanders, one man stood out like a drawn sword. It was Khalid ibn al-Walid. The same warrior who had once fought against Islam was now its greatest defender. Khalid marched toward Yamama, where Musaylima's army waited, tens of thousands strong. They were confident. They believed numbers would protect lies. But truth does not bow to numbers. The battle that followed was one of the bloodiest in Islamic history. Swords clashed. Dust filled the sky. Brothers fell beside brothers. Many of those who had memorized the Qur'an were martyred that day. For a moment it seemed as if the Muslims might lose. Damned fear passed through the ranks. But then the companions gathered themselves. They remembered why they were there. They remembered the Prophet. They remembered the promise of God, and they charged again, this time with faith burning in their hearts. And slowly the enemy lines broke. Musaylima was killed. His false kingdom collapsed. His followers scattered like shadows at sunset. Yamama was won. But the victory came with a heavy price. So many Qur'an reciters had died that Umar became worried. He went to Abu Bakr and said, "If more of them are lost, parts of the Qur'an may disappear." At first, Abu Bakr hesitated. How can I do something the Prophet never did? But after deep thought, he realized this was not changing the religion. It was protecting it. So, he ordered the Qur'an to be collected, preserved, and written in one place. From this decision came the foundation of the Qur'an we read today. Meanwhile, victories continued. One by one, the rebellious tribes returned. Arabia was united again, not by force alone, but by renewed faith. And now the path was open. The message of Islam was no longer confined to deserts and tribes. It was ready to step into the world. Abu Bakr, though physically weak, carried a mountain of responsibility on his shoulders. He lived simply. He slept little. He worried constantly about the Ummah. After only 2 years of leadership, his body began to fail. Sensing his end was near, he called Umar. He held his hand and said, "Be just. Fear God. Serve the people." And with those words, he prepared the Ummah for another transition. Soon, leadership would pass again. And soon, new lands would open. Soon, Islam would knock on the doors of empires. But with every victory, new tests would appear. Because building a nation is hard. But protecting its soul is even harder, and the story was far from over.